What's going on, everybody? Zane here, back with another video. For this one, we're going to go over question number 695, max area of island. So this one is similar to question 200, which is the number of islands problem, where we're essentially doing a DFS on some sort of matrix or an interarray grid. So what we need to do here is we need to go through the rows and the columns, and then when we hit an island, we want to be able to call our DFS function recursively that will then return some number which we could sum up to see whether or not we have our max area. Now we need to also keep in mind that we kind of have to track what our max area is so that we can compare the two to see which one is truly the maximum. So what I mean by that is we need to first go through the grid. So we'll go through our columns and rows. So we'll say for int I equals 0, I is less than the grid's length, I plus plus. Then we'll go through the rows for int j equals 0, j is less than the grid at i's length, j plus plus. And now we'll say that if the value that we're at in this specific part of the grid, the row and the column, if the value of this is equal to 1, that means we can now return the DFS function that we'll create, passing in the grid, I, and j, because those are really the only three variables that we have that we can work with. So we'll say that we'll call this DFS function, but what exactly would this function do? This function is going to return some sort of max area. So instead of calling it a DFS function, even though it's still going to be depth first search, we'll just say find potential max area. And this will be that function. So let me copy this, bring it down here. I'll just say private int this, just so I don't forget the naming. And now what we'll do is we'll keep this here for now, but we also need to be able to make sure that we're tracking our maximum area. So let's create a variable called max area. We'll set that to 0. And we'll say that the max area is going to be whatever the maximum is between our DFS function and the max area itself. So now this should account for us finding the potential max area and checking to see what the max area is. So it'll constantly go through this by going to each point where it equals 1. Then we'll do our DFS function down here. And in here, we're going to pass in an interarray grid, int I and int j, just like we basically passed it in here. And then we'll say we need to do stuff here. And when it comes to a recursive call, we know that we need to first establish our edge cases. So if there's ever a situation where we're outside of the grid, well, we need to return 0. And we'll only get out of the grid if I is less than 0, or j is less than 0, or I is greater than or equal to the length of the grid, or j is greater than or equal to grid at I dot length. Now we'll also want to make sure that if we're ever at a situation where the value that we're at is not equal to 1, that means we're not at an island, so we don't need to do anything. So we just return 0 in all of these situations. So these first 4 just account for our bounds, our left, right, up, down, and then this will account for whether or not we're at an island. Now what we could do is we can recursively call our function to do stuff here. So I'll say grid I, j, just to copy paste these, because we're going to have to do these 4 times because we need to do up, left, down, and right. So once we hit our value of 1, we want our DFS function to check up, down, left, and right. So if we were to get here, up, down, left, right, we need to go check horizontally and vertically right here. So once we do that, we should be in a good spot. Now, before we actually do our DFS calls, what we need to account for is we've already hit an island. So our value is already at 1. So I'll just say some max area is going to be 1. So we've already hit, I'm going to bring this down here. So let's just say we've passed these cases, so this is not the situation. So our max area right now is 1 because we've hit a 1. So what we'll do now, to make sure we don't account for it again, we'll set the value that we're at right now to 0. And then we will do our up, down, left, rights. So let me actually remove this because it might be confusing. So we are now at a situation where we're at an island. So max area does become 1. Now we set the value to 0 so that we don't account for it again. And now we'll say the max area, we add the up, right, left, and down. So we'll say find potential max area at grid I plus 1, j. And now we need to do that 3 more times because we want to do up, down, left, right. So I'll do up, down, left, right. And now that we've done that, we can just return our max area here. So we've got the potential area for up, down, left, right, and we're adding the value of that to our max area. And then up here, we're saying that, okay, what is the max? The value of this call or whatever max area is currently. And this should give us our answer here. We have an issue here. What is the issue? Missing a return. Oops. So we'll just return max area up here. That should do it. Okay, let's submit that. Good to go. So with our DFS function, that's the biggest piece here. When it comes to going through a matrix, an interarray array, we need to do some sort of DFS call. Or you probably could use a BFS, but I'm more comfortable with DFS. So I'll loop through until I get to a point where I'm at an island, and then I'll do the DFS call, and whatever the value of that DFS call is, I want to see if it's bigger or smaller or whatever the max is between my current max area, which is set to 0, or the finding of the potential area, max area. And then it'll continuously iterate through. While it's doing that, or at its first call, what it'll be doing is checking to see if we're inbounds and we're at an island. Yes, okay. Then the max area is definitely going to be at least 1. Set that value to 0 so we don't count for it again. Then add the area of the directions up and down, left and right. And then we'll return the max area. And we'll again return the max area up here too. So I hope that made sense, guys. If you have any questions, comments, feedback, please let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, hit that like and subscribe button, show me some love, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.